Moon is officially over because Kamala Harris is currently plummeting in both the betting markets and the polls, and this is despite the fact that obviously the DNC is going on this week, so you would expect her to get a convention bump, right? Most candidates, whether they're Republican or Democrat, their poll numbers go up when they're in the middle of their own convention, but you are seeing the opposite. You are seeing the Democratic convention backfire, and we will talk about all of the reasons why here today. But where was that confidence, Democrats, that you had just a couple weeks ago that we're winning this election really big? Because if you listen to these DNC speeches, even people like Obama don't say that. They went out there and said yesterday publicly that this is a close election. We got to make sure everyone votes. Secretly behind the scenes, they are in deep panic. And why are they in deep panic? Well, let's take a look. We're going to focus in this video mainly on the betting markets and how some of these betting markets shifted over 15 points in favor of Trump in less than a week. So what is exactly going on here? We'll break it down. We'll give you the details. So be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. But I'm going to start from the top here before the DNC to give you a full picture of what is currently going on in the betting markets, and then we will tell you what it means. So on August 15th, which is obviously 6 days ago, Kamala Harris was in the peak of her honeymoon. The media was saying she's going to win. All the polls were saying, oh wow, she's winning, she's winning. And as you see here in the Poly Market 2024 presidential election betting odds, she led Donald Trump 54% to 44%, and this is basically chance to win the election. But then what happened shortly before this weekend? Well, Kamala Harris opened her mouth, and that was the problem. Kamala unveiled her economic plan that was very controversial. Even a lot of the mainstream media were ripping it, saying it was socialist, it's very far left, all of these things. And as you can see here, that lead that Kamala had in the betting markets was wiped out. And by August 17th, as you can see here, they were both tied at 49%. So again, that is how the betting markets reacted to her economic plan. The moment that she started to actually talk about policy, people went, uh-oh. But here's what's interesting is that this Monday, Kamala Harris retook the lead. As you can see, Poly Market had her 52 to 48 over Trump. And why is that? That is because, again, people were anticipating the convention bump. This was right before the DNC began. People assumed, okay, the DNC is going to raise her approval rating. Usually conventions do that for political candidates. And so you saw her starting to get a little bit of a favor, but the opposite has occurred because we are now 3 days into the DNC and the markets have swung from Monday 9 points in favor of Donald Trump, because as you can clearly see here, now Trump leads Kamala Harris in the betting markets 52 to 47. And again, that is a 9-point swing in the betting markets towards Trump during the DNC. And that is right, bettors are not liking what they see. So I obviously just threw out a lot of numbers at you, but what does it all mean? Because I will be completely honest, I do not think that betting odds are a strong indication of what actually is going to happen in the election, right? Because they're not being decided by some type of computer Vegas sports book that is designed by AI to make the casino money. They're basically just like impulsive people betting, and so it doesn't really mean much. I would not rely on them for basically any metric in regards to the election. But you may be asking, okay, Vince, if that's the case, then why are you even bringing them up? Because while they may not decide the election, I do think that they do indicate what the public perception currently is, right? How do people feel? Whatever the reality of the situation is, how do people feel about it? And I think what these odds right here are showing you is that public perception of the DNC has been incredibly negative. That is the part that we can definitively say is true by looking at these betting odds. People watch the DNC, and instead of it giving them a degree of confidence in Kamala Harris, and again, that is usually what political conventions do. There's a reason why there's the term, right, convention bump. Instead, they're watching this and thinking, she is screwed in this election. These people are screwed in this election. And why really is that? I was watching the DNC. I thought this was true, but I thought, hey, maybe you live in your own echo chamber. But clearly from the betting odds, people are feeling this as well. The reason people are not impressed by the DNC is because it has done little to nothing to actually appeal to the political center, to independents, to moderates, to new voters. And you hear that from listening to the DNC. What is the overall message? First of all, it is Donald Trump bad. You know, every speech reiterates this sort of burning, visceral hatred for Donald Trump. And beyond that, what is really the message, right? They're not really running on an agenda. They're not really appealing to, in my opinion, a whole lot of people outside of the Democrat base, because obviously the Democrat base wants to hear, yes, Donald Trump bad, abortion, diversity, all this different stuff. But independent voters are like, okay, wait, are you going to argue for why I should vote for you over Donald Trump? They are not effectively making that argument. They are painting themselves even at this convention. Seriously, let me say this. If I were in charge of the DNC, I would tell them, okay, the characters, the diversity crowd, they're already voting for you anyway, but this is the week where, guys, put it together. We have to pretend to be normal, right? We have to pretend to be moderate, because the point of the convention is to try to consolidate and win over new voters, and yet you see they're not doing any of that. And that's honestly in contrast to the 2020 DNC, because if you remember the DNC when it was Joe Biden, sure, it was always totally disingenuous, but they did spend a lot of energy trying to paint Biden at that convention as really a reasonable, moderate guy. He's a good guy. He's a nice guy, all this stuff. It humanized him to an extent. They constantly said, he's going to unite the country. He's a moderate guy. And why were they saying all of this? Because back in 2020, Democrats knew the point of this convention is we need to try to appeal to the center. And that's something I also think Republicans understood in 2024, because a lot of those speeches, they were pretty good, but the basic message of a lot of them was not hardcore partisan conservative politics. You already have the conservative voters. It was trying to frame it in a way that is common sense to the independents, to the moderates, to the ordinary Americans, because nobody wants an open border. Nobody wants crime, etc., etc. Look at this. The DNC en masse is completely failing to do that. It is divisive. It is not really trying to make that type of appeal. And that is exactly why, in my opinion, it is not just my opinion. You look at the betting markets, literally as they watch the DNC live, they are tanking for Kamala Harris. There's a reason for that. This convention already has been a gigantic flop. And folks, to close out this video, the news just continues to get worse for Kamala Harris, because you may have heard today on Friday, RFK Jr. will be making an announcement that is rumored he's going to be dropping out of the race and very likely endorsing Trump. In fact, there is now a 62% chance, just bringing it up on Polymarket, that RFK is going to be dropping out before November. And by the way, if he endorses Trump and sends that extra 1 to 2 maybe percent of the voters to Trump, done deal, right? Kamala Harris is going to be screwed in a close election. And last piece of information is that Kamala got some even worse news in regards to the economy, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, sort of like neutral bureaucracy, essentially caught this administration lying about the jobs numbers. Okay, so apparently they actually revised the unemployment and new jobs numbers to say it was way less. It was almost 800,000 jobs less than were actually created. And apparently 1.2 native-born Americans lost employment over the last year, while 1.3 million foreign-born workers found jobs. So we, of course, know that all this talk about Biden's strong economy is fake. Nobody feels the prosperity that is supposedly being talked about. But now neutral agencies and our federal government are even admitting, yeah, the jobs numbers you keep celebrating, they're not actually real. They're incredibly misleading. They edited them to be more accurate. And so the news just piles on. Again, Kamala Harris gets ripped by her own side, right? The liberal media tears her apart for her economic policy. The DNC flops at appealing to independent voters. Now you got the jobs numbers. Now you got the possibility that RFK will be dropping out of the race. Things are starting to swing around for Trump. The tide is turning. And so now, in many ways, I would argue at this point in the election, you could say soon it is the Democrats who are going to be on defense and no longer the Republicans. Again, that honeymoon phase, folks, over for Kamala Harris. That said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.